everybody. We got another very special guest for you all. I want everyone to welcome to the show Peter Breau. How are we doing today, Peter?
Good.
Hey, thanks for joining us in the middle of some technical difficulties and storms happening on your side.
Yeah.
Glad you could be here.
Yeah.
And it is your first time, so we have to put you through the gauntlet as everybody else has gone through. We need to hear your origin story of how it all started for you in comics, and if you had a love for comics early on and all that stuff. So give us the lowdown.
Well, I've always liked comic books. I remember very young. I was raised by my grandmother, so I had two older uncles, and they used to buy a lot of the old Gold Key and Harvey, and not very many superhero comics, eh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I remember reading them, and like my grandmother, to entertain my twin brother and I when we were kids, used to just leave us with some paper and a couple of pencils, and we draw our own comics and stuff. And we always, and I'm gonna date myself here, but we always had this dream of working in the Marvel bullpen, and you know what I mean, like going to New York to do it, because back then, before internet, basically that's what you had to do, right?
Right.
But like I can't draw. My life depends on. I couldn't draw a stick man to save my life, eh? So
Same.
so I never really put much thought into the whole writing thing until like about 5 years ago. I was listening to CBC radio, and that's like equivalent to your NPR, and like the Heroes Beacon local comic book shop here, and Bell Alliant, big telecom company, and Fundy Fan Fest had got together to have the first Fundy Fan Fest character creation contest, and I thought, why not enter it?
Yeah.
You had to create a character, and you had to develop it and come up with a backstory and all that stuff, and that was going to be judged by the people at the Fundy Fan Fest and all that stuff, right? And I had no real experience, but in order to just be part of the contest, I had to go and meet like in the 16th floor of the Bell Alliant building with all these other people in this room, and with Knuckle Down Studios and Heroes Beacon and stuff like that. And I had not a clue what I was doing. I mean, I'd never written anything before in my life. I was going in there, flying by the seat of my pants, basically BSing it the whole way, right? And so I entered the contest, and I won. And so I was part of a panel at the Fundy Fan Fest and about character creation. So I thought, geez, maybe I can do this, eh? So I started doing some writing for some local comic, like Waterfront Studios and different places like that, and joined a group called Fundy Comic Art Society, and teamed up with a girl named Michelle McNaughton, who lives in Fredericton, New Brunswick, which is 60 miles away from here. And we wrote a story, and I wrote it and she drew it, about Lord Greystoke coming to St. John, New Brunswick during the building of the Reversing Falls Bridge. And if you know anything about St. John, one of the most famous parts of the city is the Reversing Falls. It's a falls that actually goes up instead of down. Oh. And the phenomenon is because the St. John River and the one of the highest tides in the world is here in St. John, is the Bay of Fundy. So the St. John River and the Bay of Fundy kind of collide, and it creates this effect. It looks like the falls is going up instead of down. That's why it's called the Reversing Falls.
Wow.
So they built this massive bridge over it back in like 1910 or something. And so I tried to, did my research and all that. And the comic book was called It Came from the Public Domain. So we were using public domain characters, eh? And Tarzan is not public domain, but Lord Greystoke actually is. And so I wrote this story, and she illustrated it, and eventually it got noticed by the Edgar Rice Burroughs Estates, and they contacted us. And I'm opening up this email. I'm thinking it's a cease and desist email, because back a few years previous to this, I think Dynamite had a Lord of the Jungle that Edgar Rice Burroughs' estate kind of went after. Now, I could be wrong on that because I think Dynamite has a Lord of the Jungle coming out now.
Right.
But I know that back then, I think that there was some trouble with that because, you know, Tarzan is kind of like Edgar Rice Burroughs. That's their like bread and butter, right?
Right.
So
for
I'm
sure.
thinking of getting a cease and desist letter from them, and actually, it was a, you know, hey, we read this, we like it, we want to archive it and we want to put it like on display in our in Tarzana, California, right? And I'm like, oh my god, what? You know what I mean? And like this
Yeah.
is the first real comic book story that I'd written, right?
Yeah.
So I just won the Fan Fest. Now I've got Edgar Rice Burroughs' estate saying to me that they'd want to archive copies of this comic, right? So I was elated by that. Of course, local news and whatever, it got picked up, and so I'm doing a lot of interviews and stuff about it and convention stuff. And so I decided that I would try my hand at writing independent comics. So I started with writing Ghost with Bradley Golden for Antarctic Press.
Yep.
And we did a few exciting comics through them, and then I went on to write excuse me, I went on to write These Damn Kids, which was exceptionally we sold out the first issue. We were the 34th best-selling comic in February, with, you know, in Diamond Previews, which is pretty good considering, like, you know, 34 out of the top 500, right?
Right. That's pretty awesome.
And I went on to write stories for Harvest of Horrors and Mississippi Zombie and Harvest of Horrors 3, which I have 2 stories in Saw Wayne's Gate that written by myself and Benito Tovar Jr. as the artist, and then Francisco Zamora as a letterer. And then I had another one with Harrison Wood called It's All About Commerce, and those 2 were Mississippi Zombie 3. Now I have an ongoing storyline in the Mississippi Zombie anthologies, but I just want to just say that Mississippi Zombie 3 debuted #1 in Canada, and
Nice.
on Amazon .ca, and it debuted #3 in the United States. And The Harvest of Horrors, which I have 2 storylines in, that my co-writer on those ones is my son Jaden. He's more the researcher, like we do World War One horror stories, and so he does all the research and I do all the writing, and he comes up with some pretty brilliant ideas and some, you know, little known lore about World War One. So we've got about 4 comics, and that's where Mud Madness comes in. Mud Madness is a World War One horror title.
Okay.
It's an anthology. It's mostly written by us, me and Jaden. But so that Harvest of Horrors was 7 weeks in the top 100 on Amazon also. So
that's awesome.
I guess that's my origin story, you know.
You just started at fame.
Yeah, like, but see, the thing is I never really thought I had the ability to write. I've never, you know what I mean? And
right.
Like, I don't find it that difficult. I at first I kind of thought it was, right? Now that doesn't mean writing. I write, like, if I was to ever try writing a novel or something, it'd probably be really hard to do, right?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I've never tried.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole comic book thing, like I said, I just went into, you know, for the Fundy Fan Fest, I just went and bluffed my way through it. I said, yeah, I think I can do this, and, you know, sold myself to all these people there, and, you know, just told them I could do it, and then I turned out I actually won. Like, I was quite shocked by that. I didn't, you know, and then just kind of bluffed my way through that one. Now since then I do watch YouTube videos on how to write, and I do look at, you know, like, I talk to a lot of different independent creators, and I follow a lot, and we have a lot of group discussions, and, you know, and we talk amongst ourselves, and I will send beta reads of scripts to people, and they'll, give me pointers and stuff like that. So it's not like I'm not an island here, right? Like there's a lot of help. I do get a lot of help from the comic book community.
That's great.
So I would love to go down a quick side tangent because you're in Canada, specifically French Canada. So for your comic scene over there, this might be a stupid question, but I'm a curious person. Do you get both French and English comics up there, or is it like strictly one or the other? Or how does that scene work with the dual languages?
I'm in New Brunswick, and we're the only officially bilingual province in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, yes, both French and English comic books. Wow. Now, mostly, if you were to go to the local comic book store here, Heroes Beacon, it would be predominantly English comics. But if you went to Moncton, which is 60 miles down the road, you would get both French and English comics. But if you cross the border over into Quebec, you're only going to get French comics. Yeah. And I was in Quebec City 3 weeks ago. My wife and I went there and our son for a week, and there wasn't an English comic book to be found. Now, I did find a comic book store just, in old Quebec City that had actually some copies of These Damn Kids in it and a copy of Harvest of Horrors, which I was quite surprised to find. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect to find them, and they were English, of course, English copies in a French comic book store.
I found myself at a mall one time in Quebec, not old Quebec, and there was a comic shop that had, I think, all French comic books, and with that, I mean, the normal DC Marvel stuff, but then a whole line of comics that are known to that area that I had never seen in the U.S. before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of they do a lot of hardcover, stuff. A lot of Tintin and
Tintin.
Like off the top of my head, I've seen a lot of Tintin and Asterix and but a lot of exactly, comics that I myself, there's a whole untapped market of indie comics just for French, I guess.
Yeah.
So you go, you both can actually answer this, but so you go to you're in Quebec and you go to get the newest issue of Avengers Forever, and it's completely in French. They translate it for that market.
Some of them will be, yes.
Yeah.
Like the comic book store I went into, I can't off the top of my head. I think it's library first issue, so it's basically first issue comic book store is what it was called. Premier issue library, and most of the new run comics that they had were in French. what I was looking for when I went in there specifically was a copy of the Zdarsky Batman, because I missed an issue of it, and it was French. So I didn't buy it because my French is a little rusty, right? But like I said, I get looking around, and there was an independent comic book section, and there was a copy of Harvest of Horrors and a copy of These Damn Kids, and I'm like, hey, I wrote those. I didn't go up to the people and say, hey, I wrote those. I said to myself, hey, I wrote those, and I took a picture of them, and then took a picture of the outside of the comic book store and said, hey, I just found comics that I wrote in Quebec City.
Were your comics in French?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they were English.
To the commenters, because I can see them already. I know that they translate comics. I was curious, when you have dual languages in the regions like that, that's got to be infuriating for the stores to be like, well, how much of my people are going to buy French? How much are you going to buy English? What do I do?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But when I was younger, and we used to get a lot of French comic books, they were black and white, and they were Marvel comics mostly, with a color cover, but the insides were all black and white, and the issues would be say it would be like Fantastic Four, 72 or something, and it would be coming out which should have been out, say, in 1969. This would be 1975, right? So even the numbering was different. But I think things have changed since then, right?
Mhm.
I think with Diamond, things have changed. Back then, I think each comic book store, I think, was more independent. They had independent shippers, maybe. I'm not sure how that worked. I know when I was buying comic books when I was like, 13, 14 years old and stuff like that, we used to go to Rose's department store, and there would be a great big like shelf full of comics, and you'd bring it up. Like the first one of the first ones I remember buying was Machine Man #1. So that by Jack Kirby, right? And Devil Dinosaur #1 by Jack Kirby. I still got that.
Oh man, that's
and,
awesome.
You used to bring them up to the counter, and they'd roll them up, and then tie them with a string, right?
Oh god, it hurts my soul. Yeah,
and I never could understand why they did that until I realized that comic books weren't the only things they sold there. They sold a lot of adult magazines too, right?
Oh, right.
That's why they rolled them up, right? Because
Okay.
they didn't people in there to be a little more discreet in what they were getting, right?
Right.
I just thought, you're rolling up my comic, but what are you doing, right?
Yeah, you're rooting it. Come on. Yeah.
This is gonna be worth millions one day. Don't you understand?
And so with all that, I mean, this is a good time to talk about Mud and Madness, right? You just brought that up.
Yeah.
That's now, is that coming out before Deliver Us from Evil, or they kind of happen at the same time, or?
No, Deliver Us from Evil is going to be coming out first.
Okay.
I'm already in talks with Zoop, and we've got something in the works here that could be any day now, right?
Okay.
But like I kind of took the weekend off from doing stuff because, like, with the whole hurricane thing going on, like everything was kind of spotty around here with the internet and the power and all that, right? But but the Mud and Madness, it's my son Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
He's a World War I buff. He knows more about it than most people do, or what people should, I should say, right? And he would come up with these interesting ideas for me. I remember one time he said, like, did you know that, like, one of the stories in Mud Madness involves, and what we try to do is we have our core characters, like this Piker character, and then there's another one who's George South and Ernest Chapman. These are real, actual veterans that fought in World War I. And we try to put real, actual people in the stories, but we throw in a little bit of supernatural in with it. But back in 1917, there was in the Belgian forests, there was the war had been stopped. Like the Germans and the Canadians had a ceasefire because there were so many wolves that were coming out of the forests and were attacking and eating the soldiers that they actually stopped the war. So Jaden's telling me this, and I thought, what a great idea to start a comic book, right?
Wow.
So we started off with that in one of the stories. But also during World War I, something that I didn't know about was there was roving bands of cannibals. There was deserters who had deserted from all the different armies, and they were roaming around no man's land, and they had their own camps, and they were cannibals, and they were actually literally eating people. Now these are so he's telling me these things, right? I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. These are fantastic stories, right? So we've got those stories, and then there's another one, Alessio Nocerino from he's an artist for some of the stories, like, and another one we have involves Knights Templar, and there's a story, a World War I legend about the Angel of the Mons, it's called, and a Canadian soldier was crucified to a barn door by the Germans, and he called down St. George and the angels, and they came down and eradicated the German army that was there at the time. And this is another World War I legend that, this one is not as factually based, but Alessio does some fantastic art around this storyline. So Mud Madness, it's a collection of World War I horror stories with real characters and real veterans. And Brian Mankiewicz, he does the the art for Knock Feast and Carnus Nocturnus. Those are the first 2 story arcs, and then Alessio takes over after that. Alessio Nocerino, and he's done work with Chuck Dixon, and he does a lot of the covers for Jungle Comics at Antarctic Press, and he's doing a big thing. Alessio right now is doing this really big thing with Ben Dunn and David Furr. Can't talk too much about it, but it's going to be big. And so he's doing the art for the Subterra story arc that we're going to have. That'll be in Mud and Madness 2. Mud and Madness 1 is Brian's already done all the art for that. These stories are complete. Like Mud and Madness 1 and Mud and Madness 2, the stories are all drawn, inked, lettered, everything. They're print ready. And the cover, we have the cover already for Mud and Madness 1. Stefano Cardacelli has done the cover for number 1. I'm not sure what we're going to do for the cover for number 2. I haven't really, like number 2 is a way off. So like for anyone who decides to back like the Zoop campaign for Mud and Madness, you don't have to worry about not getting it because it's already finished. It's print ready.
Right.
It's just a matter of printing them out. It's like the Deliver Us from Evil storyline that we're doing. Like Mattia Doggini is the artist, and Francisco Zamora is the letterer. And this is all print ready too. Like the comic is print ready. Everything's done. The inking, the art, the lettering, editing, everything's done. The covers are by Mattia does 1 cover. Stefano has done a cover. He's already done the cover for Deliver Us from Evil issue 2. That's been penciled. It just needs to be inked. So Deliver Us from Evil 2 is almost print ready. So I don't know, like, do you guys want me to tell you a little bit about what?
I was going to say we could just roll right into what is Deliver Us from Evil.
Yeah, start talking about that. Yeah.
Okay. Deliver Us from Evil it's like if X-Files and John Constantine had a baby, like
sold,
because it's
sold.
It's like it's my love letter to the fact that I love the X-Files and that I love Hellblazer and all those conspiracy theory type things and Sasquatches and UFOs and like the Nazi bell and that they thought landed in Kecksburg back in the 60s and all that. Like I put all this stuff into these comics, right? The main character is this cowardly, drunken, ne'er-do-well type character called Constantine Lazar, and he's this. There's this like, I don't know. It's this comic is 2,000 years in the making because some of the story takes place 2,000 years ago. Some of it takes place in the 1950s and 60s, and some of it takes place in the modern day. It's basically the story goes is that there's this ancient cult. I don't want to give too much of it away because like too many spoilers.
I think the fact that you said John Constantine and X-Files sold both of us.
Yeah, well, there's like, see, basically what happens is this Constantine Lazar guy. He's he's a drunken. He's like a John Constantine character, right?
Right. Yep.
And like, he's been in other stuff. Like, I did a Starbolt story for Waterfront Studios, and at the very end, the bad guy's name was Uranium. I didn't come up with the names, by the way, like the Uranium, and like they end up putting him in a lead coffin and taking him away because it's the only way that somebody who's radioactive you could take him away. But
right,
Constantine Lazar kind of shows up at the end and kind of gives this whole cryptic thing to Starbolt, right? And then he appears again in the Indie Wars that I did a thing with Ben Dunn called Independent Wars, and it was like the Ninja High School characters, and they're involved. Like they go to different universes, and they help out while they're there, but they show up in the Constantine Lazar's universe, and a bunch of things happen, and the ghost appears, and Lady Claw appears, and stuff like this, and Lazar kind of reluctantly gets him out of trouble. And then he appears again in These Damn Kids 2, which he's one of the characters. So he's kind of in all these different multiverses, because he's in the Waterfront Starbolt universe, he's in the Antarctic Press universe, he's in the Second Sight universe. Now he's in his own title, which is Deliver Us from Evil. So, and he basically, a bunch of things are happening. They don't know who else to help, so they go find him. They break him out of jail, basically, right? And reluctantly he helps. He ends up going to Montauk, where he goes down through this underground thing, and each different level going down through Montauk to the 2-page spread that Mattia did was brilliant, and like one level's got like cats playing poker as a homicide playing poker. It's got like an alien autopsy, then it's got like a cafeteria with all these aliens and Sasquatches and different people eating in it, and then another level has like AI robots building AI robots, and each level going down has this one, and next level going down has like they're filming like a Mars landing, like on a sound stage, like as a homage to the whole moon landing conspiracy as they get, and then when they finally get down to the bottom level, I don't want to spoil it but some really cool stuff happens, and then he ends up at the end of it. Silent Violet shows up, and she's a character that Mattia and myself created. The second issue's cover actually features Silent Violet. She plays an important part in the storyline. So what's happening is this cult that started 2,000 years ago is trying to change history by going back in time and changing things, and they they get von Braun and Enrico Fermi to build the chronovisor. I don't know if you've ever heard of the chronovisor. It's kind of a Vatican like untold story that the Vatican actually had this time machine called the chronovisor that von Braun and Enrico Fermi built for them, and they could actually look back in time with it. So in this Deliver Us from Evil, I have this cult actually replaces the Pope, and puts their own Pope in there instead.
Nice.
They replace Pius the 12th. Like it involves the three secrets of Fatima. There's actually a whole page in issue 1 is devoted to the 3 secrets of Fatima, and how the 3 secrets as we know them. I changed it all, like I kind of put my own spin on it. But this cult, they put in, like, the Pope reads one of the 3 secrets and he dies, and that's the whole point of it. And then they replace him with this clone, this cult does. So then they use him, because who's going to refuse to do anything if the Pope asks, right? So the Pope asks von Braun and Fermi to build this chronovisor, so that now it's possible that you can actually see back in time, but can you travel back in time? That's the next big thing. So what do? They monitor Einstein as he's dying. You know what I mean? Like, and the lore goes that Einstein, in the last few years of his life, he chased after the theory of everything, and like there's a legend has it that when he passed away, he screamed out something in German, but his nurse didn't know German, so she couldn't say what the greatest mind in history had said in his final breath. But that doesn't mean that somebody wasn't listening. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so this secret cult, of course, they had a microphone hidden in the room and they were listening.
Okay.
They heard what Einstein said, right? So, and Einstein's brain actually disappears, right? Like that's truthful. Einstein's brain disappeared.
Yeah,
right?
that's a true.
Well, you know who took it, of course. These people actually took it, right? And what did they do with it? Well, they hooked it up to a machine, and now one of the things in issue 2 is Einstein's brain is being used to power. I can't tell you more because it'll ruin it.
Yeah, you don't need to spoil it.
It powers a portal into the past. So now this cult actually knows that they can see back in time because of the chronovisor, right? Now they can actually travel back in time because of the Einstein's equations, right?
Yeah.
So they travel back in time, and when they go back there and they change something significant.
Okay.
That changes history. Now, because this organization that breaks Lazar out of prison, they bring him to Montauk, and one of the things he does see in Montauk is he sees this machine, and it's really cool. And they're also they've been picking up these disturbances in the timelines, right? And they know something's going to happen. So basically, what basically happens throughout the story is Lazar ends up going back in time with Silent Violet, and some other things that I don't want to ruin, right? But so part 3 is already written, right? You know, and so I know where it's going.
You've decided with these 2 books, and they sound awesome. It sounds like you've put a lot into them. You decide with these 2 books not to go with a publisher, instead go crowdfunding. And you said earlier Zoop. So I guess why go crowdfunding this time around, and why Zoop?
Well, I've never tried Zoop. I've never crowdfunded actually either, right? So I've seen a lot of it going around, and you guys interviewed Evan Posio there a while back, and Evan and I are pretty good friends, and we talk a lot on Messenger and stuff. And I just kind of brought it up to him about crowdfunding and Zoop, and he had a very successful Zoop campaign with his blood run. So I'm just going to try it out. I do have a publisher for both comics, like, you know, but I just want to do the crowdfunding first, and then like maybe try Zoop, and you know, see what happens, right? You know, just to get some experience under my belt with it too, right?
Yeah, and it seems pretty convenient too.
Yeah, like they're pretty good. Like we've been emailing each other back and forth for the last, like, say 3 weeks to a month now, and I've been sending them stuff. And you know, like I said, this weekend was kind of a washout, but like, so I just want to give it a try. It's a new experience for me. I want to see what happens. But yes, I do have publishers for both of those comics.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know. I'm definitely looking forward to both of them. And you don't have a specific date yet for either of them, just coming soon
for the Zoop campaign.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, it should be. I would be surprised if like it wasn't by the end of this week.
Okay.
Well,
cool.
Because like everything, they have all the information, right? They have all the things. I've sent them everything. Okay. And Eric Moss, I think, is the person I'm dealing with, and I've sent him everything. I've sent him like what, you know, graphics I want to use, and you know, synopsises and stuff like that. So
great, awesome.
You know,
looking forward to that. Yeah, and this is great. I know I'm pretty excited for both those issues, and it sounds like Chris is too. So Peter, do you have any place that our listeners and our viewers can follow you and get updates on all that stuff?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Peter Breau, you know, and I'm also I'm on Facebook at Peter Breau, and then also Peter Breau, comic book writer on Facebook. I don't have an Instagram yet. Don't have my own newsletter or anything like that. I'm not.
Okay.
You know, I'm not. Maybe someday, right?
You know? Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd like to give a shout out to some people if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
feel free.
I'd like to shout out to the artist, Mattia Doggini that I've been working with. Like Mattia's art in Deliver Us from Evil is amazing, right? Like
really cool.
I've had it's been reviewed by some sites and stuff like Simon Black's Carrick Moore did a review on it, like and I've sent like I said, I've sent some like advanced beta copies to people, and everybody's been raving about his art. So I want to shout out to Mattia. I want to shout out to Benito Tovar that I'm working on the Saw Wayne's Gate comic book series with. I want to shout out to Alessio Nocerino that we're working on the Subterra comic book line, and Francisco Zamora, letterer extraordinaire that's lettered almost everything I've ever done, and shout out to Bradley and Marcus at Second Sight, and Spike, some of the hardest working guys in indie comics.
Yeah, for sure.
Shout out to Jaden, who his ideas helped me keep going with the whole World War I stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If I forgot about anybody, like Stefano and his amazing covers for Delivers from Evil 1, Delivers. Oh yeah, and I will be a featured guest at Big Country Comic Expo in November here in New Brunswick.
Awesome.
I'm going to have some exclusive Delivers from Evil comics and some exclusive Mud Madness, and I'm going to have some and there will also be a These Damn Kids Con exclusive comic available too.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
And this will be this will be the second con I've done this year. I did Fog City back in June, but with everything's kind of up in the air, like with
for sure.
We just come out of that whole pandemic thing, right? And
I know.
Lost a couple of years, and
Well, to everyone out there listening, watching, first I want to emphasize that Peter's last name, Breau, for most people, you might want to know that it's Breau, not BRO, as us Americans might think. And I'll have a link in the show notes down below to his Twitter profile. So, Peter, thank you so much for being on. Your stories were awesome. We look forward to the books. And when they hit Zoop, we'll make sure to pimp them out as well. We'll have to do it again sometime, man.
Thanks, Peter.
Perfect. Oh, did I read you lost like 30-something pounds?
I've lost almost 50 pounds in the past 3 months.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris for losing all that weight. Good for you, dude.
Right.
Good for you sticking with it, man.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's incredible, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. Working out almost 6 days a week now.
Good job, dude.
What are you doing?
Almost no sugar.
Oh, okay.
No sugar is tough.
So
it's not completely no sugar because I still drink like coffees in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it's water all day. And just not eating crap, I guess.
Yeah. Do you do like the intermittent fasting, or is it just you just got rid of the sugar and the unhealthy food?
A little bit of both. I don't really eat like lunch per se.
Yeah.
But I'll have like a granola bar or something for lunch. So I don't completely not eat throughout the day, but pretty much I don't eat throughout the day.
I bet you feel great.
Yeah, it's night and day. Like more energy. I'll tell you what, the feeling you get when you go to buy new clothes and you have like 2 sizes smaller than what you were wearing.
Yeah, there you go.
Good for you, man.
Good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.